Welcome to the Talking About Noise podcast. I'm your host, Art Moore, and our other host, Eric Hansen, is out of the studio today. Hello. It's just me here in the studio today. It's not going to be a long episode, but I did not want to go a week without giving you guys what you want, which is my voice in your ears. That sounded weird. Don't take that the wrong way. I'm just talking about me talking on the podcast. Anyway, we have lots of good stuff to talk about. We are going to start off with some what I think is maybe some disturbing news. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But, and then we're going to move on to some studio tips, which I have prepared for today. The only real news I have today is on the Kanye Watch 2015. And this last week, Kanye has collaborated with a photographer named Jackie Nickerson on a new magazine called Season. It's an online magazine you can get. And it features photography of his Adidas clothing line and tons of naked bodies. Now, I tend to be a little more conservative when it comes to naked bodies, and I felt a little offended. I kind of felt like it was a little tasteless. Very Kanye, did not really expect differently, but not really my kind of thing. So, anyways, do with that information what you will. I suggest just ignore it. Don't even look at it, because it just, not my cup of tea. Anyways, we're going to go ahead and move on here to our main segment, which is all about recording in the studio. Doing an episode of the podcast all by yourself is not an easy thing to do. There's no one to play off of, and you just got to listen to me talk. Eric did it a few months ago, and he did such a great job, and he had great examples and stuff. And I wanted to bring something that I felt would be important to you guys, that would help you guys out the best, and that I would feel comfortable talking about all by myself. And I really do feel comfortable talking about pretty much anything by myself. I can just talk and talk, but I do want it to be of some value to you guys. So I've written up my top 10 home studio tips. Now, I've been a home studio owner, user, whatever you want to call it, for, 15 years. I got my first Porta Studio, a Tascam Porta Studio, when I was married. It was one of the wedding gifts, and it had an SM58 and a Tascam 4-track cassette Porta Studio. And let me tell you, I recorded a lot of stuff on that thing. Then I transferred it to my terrible Pentium 2 computer at that time, and figured out some way to turn it all into MP3s. And that was the beginning of me really learning how all this recording studio stuff. And I remember taking the line outs of that mixer / Porta Studio thing and plugging it right into my line in on my computer. And I found some advantages to that, because then I could just record straight to my computer, and I started using Pro Tools Free and Audacity at that time, and I was recording a lot of stuff and doing a lot of electronic music, kind of an avant-garde electronic music at the time. Anyways, so over 15 years, as I've collected microphones, as I've used different interfaces, as I've done all this stuff, collected guitars and drum sets, I've realized some things, and I hope that maybe I can keep you from having to learn the mistakes I made in the same way. So, number one, we're going to talk about room treatment. Room treatment is so important for your home studio, and it is not egg cartons on the wall. Don't do the egg cartons. I actually suggest you build your own room treatment using high density fiberglass, and you can build frames around them and put fabric around it. It's very easy to do, especially if you have a staple gun. But if that's just too DIY for you, and it was for me. I mean, it really is the cheapest and best way to go. But if it's too DIY, I suggest going with that software foam that you find. RLX has, of course, tons of different products based upon this foam, and they definitely tout themselves as the best. And I don't think that's a bad way. It can be a very expensive way to go. And so I suggest, even if you want to cheap it up a little bit and maybe have to buy a little bit more foam to put on your walls, I would go with something called foambymail.com or an online distributor on eBay that sells acoustic panels. There's lots and lots of ways to get that foam into your home and to do that. Now, the thing I found about putting foam up on the walls is I've done it several ways. One of the biggest mistakes I did was I glued it to the walls. And then my wife wanted to requisition one of the studio rooms and make it into her private office. And at that point, we had to shellac the whole walls again. Not shellac, but we had to, fix all the walls, all the holes in the walls, and it just all came off. It was a big mess. So I don't suggest actually gluing your foam panels directly to the wall. What I suggest is getting yourself some fiberboard or some plywood or something that is lightweight and easily cut, and glue your foam panels to that and then hang them on the wall. You'll have much better success patching up the holes after that, if you need to, especially if you're in an apartment. But the other thing too is that as you get started, you are going to want to be able to move these panels a little bit. They're not going to be in the exact right place the first time. And in fact, I've switched my room completely turned around because it sounds better completely turned around. So the panels I thought were going to be on the back wall ended up being on the front wall, and everything ended up working out fine. But at some point I got to redo my control room and pull all this stuff off and redo the walls in here as well. Anyways, there's a couple of ways that you can make modular panels, including taking fiberboard like we just talked about and hanging it on the wall. But what I've done is I've taken those same fiberboard panels and I created 2x2 panels, 2 feet by 2 feet panels with foam on them, and then I attach C-clamps to the back of the fiberboard. This allows me to easily slide them onto a mic stand. And actually I have several mic stands that are old and kind of broken, but they work really well for just holding up these panels. They don't have to hold up microphones anymore. They just hold up panels. And they work really, really well for that. And so as I hold up these panels, I'm able to position them all around the room. I'm able to use them as one of those reflection filters, like the SE reflection filter that, it costs like $200. I made mine for, I don't even know. How much was it? Probably like $6, $8 for all the materials. And then I made 7 of them. And these panels go all around the room. I put them in front of ribbon mics when I use them for the drum set. The panels work very, very well. And so I like being able to do that. When I have a drum set, I set them up all around the drum set. When I have a choir, I'm able to move them again to kind of contain that sound a little bit. And you can position them in any way you need to. And that's what I really like about those kind of panels. I've also built with Eric, we went to the hardware store and we actually bought PVC pipes and built large frames. And I've hung moving blankets over those frames. And the way I did it was I used Velcro, the super sticky Velcro, and I had to sew the Velcro on the blankets to the blankets. But once I did that, it's just as solid as can be. And those things are huge. They're probably, 3.5 feet wide by 7 feet tall. And so they're able to really kind of transform a room. When you put those around a drum set, it really changes what's going on there. So I personally love my PVC pipe panels. Then they break down for easy transport. I've taken them on mobile recording gigs, and they fit in a closet while I'm here. So anyways, think about what you need for room treatment. If you're recording vocals, you definitely need to build something. Eric, I know, uses his PVC pipe panels. and encloses the whole thing with blankets. And I have a good room down here, so I prefer actually to leave it a little more open. Don't forget bass traps, and you definitely want to research that in your mixing room and in any place that really is kind of a small room and needs bass traps to kind of control those bass traps, those bass sounds. All right, number 2 on the list. And this is a really simple one, but it's really important. You want to keep your recording levels low, lower than you think. Now, in the old days, they used to push the recording levels all the way up to 0 and a little bit past. With analog gear, this worked really, really well. The tubes would react in a positive way. You would have some kind of grit in there. It would give it kind of color. You'd have different transient details coming forth through that. But in the digital world, when you're recording to your computer, especially if you're recording at 24-bit, and you should be recording at 24-bit minimum, you don't need to record that hot. And in fact, if you hit 0 on a digital meter, guess what? You're done. That signal will be unusable. When you hit that digital meter, it chops it off. It doesn't grow into the tube or move into the tube, or the tube, kind of handles it, but, warms up a little hotter. It just cuts it straight off. So I suggest that you record at -12 to -18 dB when you record, and just keep it clean, keep it nice and clean. You're going to have plenty of headroom to bring that volume up, and the noise floor on most of these interfaces and microphones is so low you will not hear it. So that's just a really, really good tip. To do that. Keep those recording levels much lower than you think you need to. You don't need to get anywhere near 0. If you're recording at home, I want you to start, this is number 3, by the way, I want you to start thinking about your microphone selection. What mics do you have currently, and what mics are you thinking about investing in? Because I really want you to consider using dynamic mics for vocals. Now, the SM57, I like the ES57 for my voice, SM58, there's the Onyx i5, there's tons of dynamic mics that work well for vocals, and it definitely is like a more live rock feel to that voice. And so if you are working with somebody who's doing like a rock album, or if you're doing a rock album, a dynamic mic might just really hit in there really well. But I've also found that large diaphragm dynamic mics, such as the SM7B or the RE20, or like I'm on the MXL BCD1, which is a large diaphragm. It's not a very popular one, but I really like it. These mics also work fantastic on vocals. They capture those high end. I'm speaking on the MXL BCD1 right now, and they just capture that high end, and they really just they sound warm and really, really good. I often do mic tests with clients who come in, and this mic here is one of the ones they pick. More often than not, they're like, "Oh man, I like the way that sounds." Now, I record a lot of rock, so that's understandable. And this last week, I had a singer-songwriter come in, and he said, "No, I like the NT one better," and it was better for his voice. So, there's always differences and changes. But consider using a dynamic mic. It picks up less room noise. It can really focus your voice. And I've even done sessions before where I've recorded with both a condenser mic and a dynamic mic. I got them, same distance away from the singer, so they would be in phase, and then I mixed them together and got really fantastic sounds. It was really fun. Now, let's see here. Number 4 here is all about mic placement. So as you record vocals or record on guitar, if you take your mic and put it straight on, you're going to get one sound. If you take that mic and then turn it 45 degrees, you're going to start to lose a little bit of the high end. Now, a lot of people have what I would consider cheap Chinese condenser microphones. And one of the biggest complaints about them is that they're just too high end, too much sizzle, and I've definitely noticed that in some of mine. But what I suggest you do is take that mic and turn it just 45 degrees. You're going to see that you're going to get a lot less of the high end, and you'll get a much better controlled sound that way. And it works for guitar cabinets. It works for vocals. It works for darn near everything. It's a great way to get a little EQ before you have to start sliding sliders around and stuff. So mic placement, where you place that mic, how you use it on axis, which is straight on, or off axis, which is turned around. That can be an interesting choice. I had one fellow who actually sang into the back of a condenser microphone, and I couldn't really figure out what was going on. And then I went in there and I was like, oh, okay, well you gotta sing into this end here, and or this side here. And of course, it changed his voice a ton. But we ended up going back to the original voice with him behind the microphone. It was a very interesting sound, and he liked it for part of the song, so we ended up using it. Number 5, when you are recording drums. Actually, I think this might be number 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is number 6. When you're recording drums at home, especially in your home studio or wherever your band practice space is, I don't know why they seem to be in basements with lots and lots of concrete everywhere, or garages with bare floors, but they tend to be that. Anyways, if you're getting a lot of room noise in your drum sound, number 1, look at your room treatment, build some modular room treatment to help out with that a bit. But then also consider bringing your overhead drum mics down. Bringing them lower will actually grab less of the room and more of the kit. You'll get a little bit tighter sound, and you'll get a lot less of the room in there. But just that one tip of bringing those drum overheads down will really help the drum kit. Now, this is one of my favorite tips, and I try to do this often. I'm not going to say all the time, but I really try to do something funky every time I record. Maybe in a session I'll do one thing like just funky. And the tip is, don't be afraid to use the wrong mic on a source. There's something cool and special and fun about pulling out a mic that's not supposed to be used the way it is and using it. I remember my wife once recorded a song, and I pulled out a small diaphragm condenser, and that was our recording tip of the week a couple of weeks ago. But it was great on her voice. She loved it. It really worked out well, and it's one of those things that you just got to use what you have and try to figure out what your stuff is good for. Use it for how it can be used instead of what it's supposed to be used for. Okay, so this one is a big one for me. Number 8. When you're recording drums, one of the biggest issues you're going to run into is phase issues. I hate phase issues, and in fact, they drive me nuts. You have a great drum sound, but it's just sounding a little empty, a little hollow, there's something wrong in there. So what I like to do when I record overheads, and this really simplifies it, is I like to use a stereo bar for my 2 small condenser microphones, but they can work for ribbon microphones or large diaphragm condenser microphones as well. I will point both of the tips of the microphones until they're almost touching at a 90-degree angle, and that's called the XY pattern of recording. Now, the stereo image is a little tighter. I actually like it tighter so that kind of works for me. That sound works for me in my recordings and the recordings I do for people. But if you want a slightly larger, you can turn those mics outward until they are about 110 degrees away from each other. Okay, and this is called the ORTF method. It's a French method, popularized sometime. I don't know really, but it's a really good method for getting a little bit wider stereo image, but it really still helps with the phase issues. And personally, I like to get the drums so that they are over top of the overhead mics. I like to get the overhead mics so they're over top of the toms in a way that you get a good stereo image of the toms. So I try to put them in the middle of the toms, almost pointing straight at the snare. And that helps me as much as I can to get a good stereo image, and it keeps the snare in the center as best I can, and we go from there. So that's, I think, a really good drum overhead technique is get yourself a stereo bar. I think I just bought 2 online on eBay for $10 each, and they are really, really helpful. Okay, vocal tip. This is tip number 9, by the way. We're almost done with my list, which I think is pretty cool. And my tip is don't record your vocals in a closet. Closets are small and they are not built for recording vocals in. Even if you have tons of clothes in there, use your modular room treatment to build out a larger booth than the room, than the closet. Every time I've tried to record vocals in a closet or even just a small room, they just sound boxy. Don't do it. There's no good reason. And if you have to, try as best you can to use a dynamic mic. It's going to help reject some of that room a little bit, and it's going to get you a better sound. But in general, don't record in a closet. Record in your control room, in your bedroom, and use the modular room treatment that you have to create something that will work well. Okay, so here we go, and we are at my last tip of the day. And now that I think about it, I feel like this one's kind of a cop-out, but it's true. It is important, and so I want to talk about it a little bit. The tip number 10 is use your ears. Make sure that you use your ears as you work. Don't throw up mics and assume that it's in the right place. Throw up a mic, record some of it, go back and listen to it, and then go and move the mic, go and change it, turn it 45 degrees, have it pointing in a different direction in the room. Use a different mic. Don't just let things, don't put things up the way they look that they should be. Use your ears. Now, I've come up with some very interesting drum techniques that I've only seen maybe a handful of people use after I came up with them on my own. I realized I didn't invent them, but I came up with them, and then I went online to research it, and I saw someone else had done it as well. But they're not very popular, but they sound so good. I get great kick drum sounds off of this technique, and so I only got there because I was using my ears. I was trying to use techniques that were different, that were interesting, and that would bring a sound that was unlike any sound that we had heard before. So I want you to keep using your ears. Keep trying to listen. Close your eyes while you're mixing. Close your eyes while you're setting up and listening to mics. Like, just get things right because they sound right, not because they look right. Anyway, that's the end of the podcast. I mean, it's just a short little bit, short little thing about some recording tips, and I hope they help you get ready for your next recording project. I've had just a really fun time putting this list together, and as I thought about the mistakes I've made and the problems that I've had in my own studio, I wish I had this kind of list to start off with. And now that I have shared this list with you, I just want you to go and do the same. Go and make some music. Go and record something, make something happen, and tell us about it. Go to talkingaboutnoise.blogspot.com or email us at talkingaboutnoise@gmail.com and let us know what you're working on. And if you produce something, we'll put it on the show and we'll listen to it. You can catch me on Twitter at AERT30. You can catch our co-host, who isn't here today, but he wanted to be, at I Am The Swoop on Twitter as well. And that's it. I'm out.